Hello again, Igal Malka. Listen, I find it hard to say these things because there's a fundamental resistance in me to speak about everybody. But this is the reality. The reality is that the Palestinian population in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza alike, according to data that were presented here in my program last week, the statistical info by an Israel which extracts them from different polls, not that we edit, that the majority of the population in Judea and Samaria, if the elections were free, do you know who would have been elected there? Ismail Haniyeh, with an 80% majority. And if not him, a different terrorist. It doesn't matter. And this is a little bit less than in the Gaza Strip, where he would have been elected as well, only for 75%. I don't know why 5% difference. It doesn't even interest me. But what is important is the next question is, does the population there identifies with terror, and especially the terror of Simchas Torah, that Black Sabbath? It turns out that most of the population in the Gaza Strip, according to those days, the days of the poll, I don't know, how is it today when Gaza is being ruined, they identified with these deeds. So listen, it's a despicable people, people that we got stuck with, people which you see their terrible barbarism. And I ask you, do you think anybody in the world would like to absorb them? So I'm letting you know nobody would like to. And the fact is that according to this minute, not even one Muslim country absorbs one Palestinian. There's about 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. The reason for that. But I would be very happy if you would let me finish my thesis. First of all, the Muslim states, the Sunni states, not the Shiites, they were semi-repaired, not real democratic, but it's not very important. They do not want not even a single Palestinian over there. As an evidence, they haven't offered any. And even in the states where Palestinian refugees were absorbed, they were left as refugees for reasons which I know. But now the question is, so where are you going to lead them? You're going to force the Egyptians to absorb them? One of them they will not absorb. And you can't do that. If you cannot kick them out of here, what can you do? Therefore, I repeat what I told you. You need to give the world an incentive to absorb them in quantities that will not influence them. A country with 80 million inhabitants, if you absorb 20,000 such terrorists and you spread them around, you can deal with that. You know how to deal with that. The European states absorbed 3 million Ukrainians during the Russian war. More than that. All the more, the European states absorbed Muslim immigrants from Africa, from Syria. If you absorb those, there's no reason, at least not morally. And now we're putting out to the world. The world doesn't want, okay. First of all, it has to be offered. And if the world will not want to, the world loses its moral right to dictate to us how to deal with the situation. And that's what I say. And then you can speak of a security strip in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Now, data. I want to speak data. Once you told me you like data, and I hope that's still a quality of yours. Germany. The President Schultz, about a month ago, said that maybe it's time that we in Germany should consider returning a certain percentage, a quantity, doesn't matter, a certain quantity of Muslims, Arabs, back to their native states, meaning all the Arabs that continue being anti-Germany. In France, the same voices, exactly the same voices. People are starting to speak about that, and there's Marine Le Pen, which is growing in the polls, and maybe the next elections will be won by her, and she speaks of evacuation, meaning a transfer, meaning leading people back to their native states. I'm going to dial that in a minute. And the most fascinating is that today, when we are sitting here, yesterday, the party that won the majority, maybe not the leadership, but the majority in Holland, that the head of that party, the largest camp in Holland, and there are other right-wing parties in Holland, is speaking about de-Islamization of Holland and returning Holland to the Dutch and all sorts of things like that. Meaning there's a wave like that today, which is saying, wait a minute, the deal with the Muslim is not so good. We need working hands, but they're not involving themselves in society, and they're turning into our haters, and they're thinking about occupying their host states. And we're talking about such polls that were made. There's not a chance to fulfill your vision to get rid of the Gaza Strip inhabitants. You need to bless over the awakening in the Western states. Anybody that understands what is he standing in front of a Muslim overtake of Western countries, we need to bless on that and strengthen their hand. And with that you brought those voices, we hear the Prime Minister of Scotland is calling the refugees from Gaza to come over to him. No problem, sir, you'll get 3 folds over. And I can assure you the situation in Ireland is not different. It's exactly the same perception as the Scots. Countries are not lacking. The Arab states that you mentioned. To begin with, the Muslim states. Now we're touching the root of the so-called dispute. The Muslim states from the beginning cultivated the consciousness of refugees and left the refugees here as an explosive, as a human weapon against the existence of the State of Israel. That was their concept since forever, and this has to be understood by all the left-wing organizations, which I'm sure they do. It's just that peace makes money, and a lot of people make millions over it, and that has to be spoken of and be floated. But all I have left to offer to the world is absorb a minimal amount of these characters with you. You'll benefit from it financially. You'll be portrayed positively in the world. Works, great. If it doesn't, you lost the legitimization to dictate to the State of Israel how to act.